So Nova Nordisk, we should have listened to our other analyst, Mia Silverio, as she came up with Catalent and said we should buy stock. And I think it's up 60% since she made that prediction. And seems obvious, but it wasn't obvious at the time. It's like, well, don't look at Nova Nordisk. The stock's already up. The word's out. Look at their suppliers. Good for Mia. Good for Catalent. Disney, Fox, Warner Brothers, Discovery. I still think if you were teaching an economics class, by the way, I was a graduate student instructor in macro and microeconomics. That's how I put myself through business school. Given that I got a C in economics undergrad, they decided to make me a graduate student instructor. And I taught for a woman named Christina Romer, who I think went on to be the chief economic advisor for Clinton, I think. Anyways. But I think the streaming market is just a fascinating example of how economics plays out. And that is overinvestment, driving down margins. One player pulls out ahead and the market begins to shrink. The cable bundle begins to shrink at the new entrant of a cheap capital competitor in streaming. And it forces consolidation and cost cutting. And you could kind of walk through the history of media, the cable bundle melting, and then the emergence of streaming, what's happened in streaming. It's just I think it's a fascinating study. So these guys combining forces, I mean, if you think about it, Netflix, I hate to say this, Netflix is the Axis powers, they're Germany. And a powerful force that you're fighting against makes strange bedfellows. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, Ed, that the Russians, the British, and the Americans came together and got along to try and push back on the Axis powers because they've woken up and realized they're not each other's enemies, they're competitors, but their enemy is Netflix, who's kind of running away with it. And they realize sports is still something people will tune in live for, such that they will endure advertising, and these companies have great relationships with advertisers. And they're just going to make it sort of a default that you have to, if I understand their vision, if you're into sports, you kind of have to probably sign up for this because they're going to bring it all, right? Or most of it, or a lot of it. So I think it's a really smart move. Do you have any thoughts on either Nova Nordisk or Mexico or Disney? WeWork, I think Adam Neumann should just disappear because when you go through bankruptcy, you have to have it approved by the court administrator. And they typically don't look very kindly on someone who's made a shit ton of money and then the company tanks and they come back to buy the company for scraps. Generally speaking, they don't like that. I'm just shocked that Andreessen invested alongside of this guy because when you're in the business, when you have multiple billions under management, you can go into distressed companies, but you typically don't like to go after or partner with damaged people because you're already rich. You're going to get richer. The way you fuck it all up is by making a really stupid mistake in retrospect or in hindsight. So these guys are not looking to make as much money as they are looking to not to lose reputational value. If they were to back him and he was to do WeWork again, and then it was again to not work out, I mean, the investors would correctly go, what were you thinking partnering with this guy? There's never been a furnace of capital like Adam Neumann.
To your point, we discussed that investment last year. It was a $350 million investment at a $1 billion valuation, which was the biggest check Andreessen Horowitz had ever written. And it turns out the vision for this company is WeWork is bankrupt, so let's just buy them out. And to me, that says this is not a company. To me, that says this is a checking account for Adam Neumann to personally go out and just buy whatever he wants. And in this case, it's his failed passion project.